Hello everybody, welcome to another Unity game developer video, and I am making just a quick thing. I'm just showing off this script I have where I find the distance from the player to the ground and why I am using RaycastAll as opposed to Raycast in the script. So this empty object, this empty game object here named climb bottom, you can see it selected in the screen right here. What's happening with that object is it is placing it on the ground level. So the way it is doing that is I have a RaycastAll shooting down from this target object here, the main head of the snake body, or in this case now it's a bug. If I rise up like that, it is still touching the ground. So the way it's happening is it is placing this object at the transform of that target object, and it is subtracting in the Y value that in the Y position of that transform that distance to ground value that I have in the script. And I'm going to show you why in many cases people would use Raycast, but I have to use RaycastAll. So it's placing that on the ground level, and that works for regular game objects too, so not just the ground level here. If I go up on here, it's also going to place it directly beneath it. And the reason I was having issues with that is with Raycast, normally it would just shoot straight down, but with this climbing function I have here that I'm showing, obviously if it is shooting the Raycast down from this head element right here, it's going to be hitting the body segments. So it will be blocked by that very first, that zero indexed body segment. So I would need RaycastAll to shoot through these objects, and then I would compare it with a tag or a layer value just to discern if it is an environment piece. So then I would place it at that height. The issue with that is logically you would think when the RaycastAll is shooting down, it is creating a new array every time it hits a different object. So it's shooting down, it is hitting this blue object here, and then it's hitting the ground object. So it's creating an array with those two items in it. And logically you would think that when you're shooting that Raycast and it's creating the array, it is the very first object it hits will be the 0th index in that array. But I found that without creating a separate array and assigning these objects and storing those for later, even though I am comparing tags and layers, the way RaycastAll works is it is a private array of raycasts, and it is grabbing objects and it's grabbing those objects and putting in the array before you make the comparisons via layers and tags. So that doesn't exactly work. So the way that I am actually only accessing these objects here, as opposed to the body segments in the full character, is I am, well, let's just jump into the script and I'll show you. So the way I have it here is if it is detecting a single object, it is not necessary to incorporate the array at all, because if it is detecting a single object, it is just it would pretty much be acting as a regular Raycast, not using RaycastAll. So I've actually created a small little graphic here demonstrating the camera shooting the ray on the left is a Raycast, is using Raycast, and the camera on the right is using RaycastAll. And you can see that it is hitting the nearest object, but it is not penetrating to the objects below. With the RaycastAll, it is creating an array, and it is placing the very first object it hits as the 0th index in that array. Right now I've listed as 1 and 2, but if you're watching this video, you probably know that indexes start at 0, but for the sake of clarity, let's just have it here as 1 and 2. But it is hitting that object, and that's the first object in the array. Then it is setting the next object as the second object in the array. When it is only hitting one object, there's only one object, 1 and 2, and that's how it works. If there's another object below that, it'll be 1, 2, and then 3. So it is creating that small array, and it is just cataloging all the objects that it hits. So if I jump back into the script, filtering the objects that the RaycastAll would hit has to apply after it is creating the array of objects that are being grabbed by the RaycastAll. So I can't discriminate by tag and layer as the raycast is being shot. But what I can do is I can take the array that's being built with the raycast and grab the objects that are being cataloged in the array through there and discriminate afterwards. So with the first object, if there's only one object being detected, and that's just that's just the length of the array that's being created by the raycast. So if there's only one object, then the distance, the hit, is going to be detected as the 0th index of that array, because the array itself is only going to have a 0 index because there's only one object. If there's more than one object right here, it goes through, using a for loop, it is going through the entire array of objects being hit, and in this case is detecting if it is an environment object, and it is going in there and it is taking the .point.y value of that hit. So it's taking the vector 3 of where it's being hit, the y value of that, so the height, and it's cataloging that into a separate array called heights. And it is cross-referencing that with all the other objects in the array, and using system.link, you can actually find the max value, not the max value, but that's how it's stated, the highest value in the array with the array.max, and I am finding the highest y value in that array, and I am setting the hit that is used for the calculating the distance to that that object that is being cross-referenced. So it finds the object with the highest y value in that array, and then it sets it to the height array, and then it finds organizes it so that the highest object is being assigned to that hit variable that would normally calculate the distance to the ground. So that hit variable is calculating distance to the ground when it was acting as a simple raycast, but when it's a raycastAll, it has to be sorted in order to find that. Because in my experience, I don't know if it is just because it was cataloging the several other body segments in the array when it climbs the body segments here, but the 0th index was not always showing up as an environment object, even when using layers and tags to discriminate. So that way that I have it set up, it is actually finding the true highest environment object, and it is setting the distance there. So I think this was a very interesting way to solve this issue, and I think it works great. So and the reason I needed this, actually, I might as well explain that. For this climbing function I have, not only is there a climb bottom object, which is always at the ground level, but I'm using that climb bottom object. I always need that at the ground level so that I can use the amount of objects in this array to set the y value of this climb target top part. So it's directly above it, and I add more objects to the array so I can climb. Let's just move away from the wall for a second. So it's higher. So I'm using the value, the length of this array to gauge the distance it would be able to move from the ground. So that value for the height of here would be completely off if it was detecting the ground beneath the object that it's actually above. So yeah, so I think it works really well. And I was actually having issues with that for, I hate to admit it, I was actually working on that for several hours trying to get that to work. But I am very glad with how it works. So thanks for watching my video, and well, I put together this this little demonstration in Photoshop, so I might as well go back to it and look at it for a second, because I put a decent amount of effort into it. I think it's a good good little graphic. I'll probably swap the numbers to be 0 and 1, just so people know, because they know how arrays are indexed. So I'm probably going to throw it up on Twitter. If you don't follow me on Twitter, it is at cyberbully20xxd. That is my developer page, and I post some game design stuff there. And if you're interested in this, if you like this video, subscribe, like it, and check out my page for more. So see you guys in the next video, and thanks for watching.